This is the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame inductee profiles. And my name is Joe McPhee, and my guest is Glennis Scott. Glennis was born in 1936 and lived and grew up in the small hamlet of McConnell. He was a terrific pitcher with McConnell, Hamiota, Carmen, Miami in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He had a fine record in the Canada Games, in Canadian Senior Championships, as well as in the World Championships and the Pan Am Games. He later coached or managed Manitoba teams that won medals at several Canadian or Western Canadian championships. He has held various positions with the Manitoba Senior Baseball League, Baseball Manitoba, Baseball Canada, is a member of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and was inducted into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame in 1998. Welcome, Glennis.
Good to be here, Joe. Thank you.
So, tell us about the experience of growing up in a baseball family.
Well, I guess I was pretty fortunate because there was no shortage of somebody to play catch with at home. I had 4 sisters, and some of them were as good a ball players as we were. And, of course, our dad was the manager of the local team and had a reputation for developing pitchers. And there were a lot of good pitchers come out of McConnell. Also, I was young. I was the bat boy for this McConnell team, which was mainly a tournament team. They played in the Midwest League there in the spring, but by the middle of June it was starting to lean towards tournaments, and for the next 2 months it was tournaments, tournaments, tournaments. We'd play as many as 4 tournaments a week, and if you had a good team you'd be playing 3, maybe 4 games a day. A lot of them were 5-inning games, but you got a lot of baseball, and I think that's where I really benefited. At an early age, I played a lot of ball and learned by experience. There wasn't a lot of minor baseball. I did get in on a midget team in Cardale in 1952 that ended up winning the provincial championship. That was one of the first provincial championships around there. But primarily my early years I was playing with McConnell.
Right. And your dad was the coach, and so that's where you learned how to pitch?
Yeah, he was the boss, and he was boss at home too. I, of course, being a young person, I sometimes thought I knew more than my dad, and I can recall one tournament in Oak River. I'd been working on this knuckleball, and I thought it was my best pitch, and we were in the finals against a team from Kenton, and Doug Parker was batting, and I got a couple of strikes on Doug, and Dad called for my curveball, which was usually my out pitch, and I shook that off, and I shook off the fastball, and so he come out to see me, and I, of course, wanted to throw my knuckleballs. So he gave in, and I threw my lovely knuckleball, and I don't think they ever found the ball. It was in the slough in center field, and forever after, that pitch was called the Doug Parker Special.
So did you carry on with a knuckleball after that?
No, that was the last time I ever threw the thing.
Is that right? So you said curveball was probably your out pitch. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say so. I had a pretty fair fastball too, and later years I turned the fastball over a bit and developed a sinking pitch away from left-handers and into a right-hander, but I learned to throw a curveball early on, and I seemed to be able to throw it naturally without hurting my arm, and so at an early age, especially in minor ball, if you had a good curveball, you pretty well had most of the batters eaten out of your hand.
Yeah. Good. So after McConnell, where did your baseball travels take you?
Well, our family were all teachers. At one time, the whole 6 of us were teaching. But I took my teacher training in Winnipeg, and my first teaching job was at Oak River, and taught for 2 years there, and played hockey and baseball in Oak River. We had some very good athletes there. And then I decided to move away from that area, and I ended up in Miami, a little sporting community in southeastern Manitoba. And I spent 11 years there, probably 11 of the best years of my life. First of all, the community really supported the school and all its activities, and they also supported their baseball and their hockey, and they had a good team in both. Once again, I kind of lucked out because I had some good catchers to pitch to. Elmer McCurley had just come back from the Carmen Cardinals. This was kind of the end of the old Mandak League.
Right.
And Elmer's from Miami. Max Weber is a local guy there, played junior hockey in Winnipeg and was back on the farm. Pat Andrews was there, Bob Thompson. They had a very good group of fellows, and we played in the South Central League there for a number of years.
So these guys weren't all from Miami. They were all recruited to play ball for Miami. Is that how it worked?
Actually, no. Bob Thompson and Pat Andrews and Max Weber and Elmer and these guys are all from Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were the ringer brought in.
Well, I was there to teach.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was a very good experience. Miami treated me very well. I met my wife from Carmen, and we both taught there actually for 2 or 3 years before we moved up to Manitoba, where we live now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard that you had a brief stint with the original Winnipeg Goldeyes. Can you elaborate on that any?
Well, I was going to summer school at the time, and I knew Terry Hines, who was the general manager of the Goldeyes. At that time, they were in the Class C Northern League in the organized baseball end of things, and Terry invited me to come down and pitch some batting practice before the games, and I spent most of my summer holidays when going to school and pitching batting practice. And later that year, I ended up at a tryout camp actually for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I got an invitation to participate in training camp in Albany, Georgia, the next February. But I'd already been teaching 3 years, and I had a very important decision to make. Terry Hines advised me, thought probably I might make AA, but he didn't think I had the material to go to the majors, and so I decided to stay with teaching as a career, and I think it was a good decision.
Good. Now, you certainly went on to greater heights in baseball. Certainly you were one of the main players for the original Canada Pan Am Games team, one of the first Canadian national teams, I believe it, which the Pan Am Games held in 1967 here in Winnipeg.
Yes, that was a great experience. I was probably one of the older players at that time. I was 31 when that Pan Am Games came to Winnipeg, and Gladwin probably told you that some of the problems they had putting a team together. Many of the teams were reluctant to give up their best players to in the middle of their season to come and play in Winnipeg. But it was a great experience. I think we raised a few eyebrows, found out that the Cubans and the Americans and Puerto Ricans and so on, they put their shoes on the same way as you and I, 1 foot at a time. And it turned out that it was the first experience, I think, that Canada had internationally. And from there it went on to greater heights, I guess.
Okay. Who would have been your catcher on that team?
Well, the original catcher was from Kitchener, and he was one of the chaps that had up with a cup of tea with Baltimore Orioles, and
anybody with minor league experience at that time was ineligible. They were considered professional. Yes,
and I think our coaching staff was unaware of that at the time, and so the catcher that ended up catching most of the games in the tournament was Larry Bashew from Regina. But and he did a good job. Just that our team was kind of decimated a little bit. There were some key players that about 4 of them that were cut from the ranks and sent home.
Now, all pitchers usually like to talk about their hitting more than their pitching. So, can you tell us what kind of batter you were and any exploits that you remember, home runs that won games for yourself? Or
well, I wasn't really much of a home run hitter, but I guess with my experience with McConnell, that's one thing I learned is that play every position, and even caught a little bit. But you got a chance to bat, and there was no such thing as a designated hitter, and so I, without being too modest, I was probably considered a fairly good hitter. And the game that we did win against Cuba was my finest hour, I would say. I went 4 for 4 that night with 2 singles and 2 doubles.
You certainly helped win your own ball game.
Yeah, but I also had, it was there was a rain delay in the 6th inning, and I also had Bob Hunter to come in and finish the game. There was a rain delay for about an hour, so I just pitched 6 innings in that game. The previous game I had pitched the 9 innings against Cuba, and it was probably a better pitching performance on my part, but we didn't win it.
Well, you've been a pitcher and seen pitching and coached and scouted pitching now for many years. So what's the difference between pitching back in the 1950s and pitching today?
Well, you know, I had the opportunity to attend a Blue Jay rookie camp in Dunedin, Florida in '92 and work with the Coach Braden. He was the minor league pitching coach for the Blue Jays at the time, and if I learned one thing down there, I learned that what coaches are teaching in Manitoba isn't all that much different than what they were teaching at that level. Right. The coaches maybe were tweaking the pitchers' specific pitches a little more, or trying to get some movement on their various pitches, their changeup and their fastball, but the basics, and believe it or not, they still had to teach the basics at that level too. Some of them either forget them or they need to be reminded of some of the basic pitches. I learned that there weren't a whole lot of secrets. It was, and it was kind of heartwarming to know that coaches back in Manitoba, many of them, most of them are doing an excellent job with kids.
Now, you're still involved some ways today with baseball?
Yes. I'm past president of the Manitoba Senior League. I was president for 3 years back in the mid-'90s, and have been past president ever since. I've got out of coaching pretty much, and it's mostly administration now.
Well, thank you, Glennis.